Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Unacademy, the one-stop destination for the civil services English medium aspirants. Welcome to an initiative called Ethics Simplified. We meet every single week in order to discuss underlying ethical issues associated with current developments. What we have for today is a victory that was talked about on social media, on news channels, in multiple newspapers. Yes, you guessed it right. It is the victory of Zohran Mamdani as the new mayor of New York City. His victory was discussed not in the mere city limits, not just in United States of America, but world over. Why is that the case? Of course, there are many firsts attached to him. He happens to be the first Muslim as well as a person from a Ugandan origin. He was born in Uganda and his parents are of an Indian descent or an Indian origin. In that context, there are multiple firsts associated with representation, a person rising those ranks and becoming the mayor of New York City. Along with that, his campaign basically redefines the way politics is conducted in today's time. It has given a fresh boost to how ethics should be wrapped in how politics should happen. The chase to power should not be devoid of ethics is something that his political campaign also signifies. Now, why is this important from GS paper 4 point of view? I will show you certain previous year questions which will be around the need for ethics in Indian politics, which is why the question will not be on his kind of politics in GS paper 4. It can never be, in fact. But the question will definitely be on how we can inculcate and infuse ethics in Indian politics. And therefore, the lessons can be learned from what we have seen in the New York mayor election as well. So let's dive into this topic. But before we do, I have a quick surprise for you. We have launched Unacademy Platinum. The essence of Unacademy Platinum can be understood in the fact that learning should never be a monologue. Rather, true learning happens when there is a conversation of minds. That is exactly what we intend to do with Unacademy Platinum. There is often a perception that any kind of online medium is devoid of that connection that you have with your teacher and your educator. You lose that connect. They are not being able to continuously monitor your progress. It feels very alienated to be asking questions only through a textual medium, maybe in the form of a chat, etc. And therefore, you miss an offline, real life learning environment. But you want the comfort of your home. It is absolutely difficult for you to go to maybe a Delhi or any other metro city and live there and take up various other expenses. Therefore, we want to bring to you the best of both worlds, an offline experience but in an online medium. That is exactly what we present with the new batch that we are launching starting on the 17th of November. Let's understand what all do we offer in this platinum experience. Please note, the first and foremost will be real live sessions in which not just our camera will be on for you to see us, but it is mandatory for your camera as a student to also be switched on at all times. In fact, in order to ensure the discipline, we have certain penalty structures associated with the camera use policy as well. So the idea for us as educators have to constantly look at you and see if you are following or you are being left behind. Your audio can be switched on anytime by us and we can ask you to answer the question or add to the discussion that we are doing at hand. This will replicate the proper real classroom environment for you as well. We will also have certain incentives, for example, how you can check your score, your rankings on a dashboard that will incentivize you to perform better. We also have one-on-one mentorship sessions that are conducted by the educators. We do not want to leave our responsibility of hand-holding you, disciplining you, and making sure that quite literally you are in front of our eyes at all times. So this is what we gain from the Platinum experience as well. We hope to see you in Platinum classes in the coming few days. Every time that we do a YouTube video, there will be an educator explaining you the main features associated with Unacademy Platinum as well. So please stay tuned to be understanding the process. Now, let's look at certain previous year questions that basically tell us the relevance of this topic. As we had discussed, it is not the person's win specifically that is important, but how the political campaigns were conducted in New York. What were the new kind of fresh initiatives taken? What are certain best practices that we can emulate in India so as to ensure that Indian youth feels that politics and ethics are not devoid and even good ethical individuals can join Indian politics? Look at the previous year questions. It is often said that politics and ethics do not go together. The conflict with this perception that if you want to survive in Indian politics, you got to be unethical. Or if you are an ethical person, you will not survive in Indian politics that is also associated with money and muscle power, with manipulation, with severe tactics, etc. What's your opinion in this regard? Give your answer with illustration. Now, this kind of a question requires what ethical politics is. So, once you are answering the needs and demands of politics versus the needs and demands of being ethical, you will then say that why should we see them as A versus B? Why can't they both exist together? And there you will give examples, and those examples can be from the lessons that we will be learning today from the New York mayor's election. Young people with ethical conduct are not willing to come forward and join active politics in India. 2017 questions. So therefore, if you think that this question or this topic is not relevant enough, think twice looking at these previous year questions. I've also made a possible question that we can expect. Ethical politics is not about winning power. It is not just about coming to power with whichever means that you use. Rather, it is about winning the trust of people in a democracy. Illustrate, discuss, etc., etc. Politics, ethical politics may be just relating to coming to power by hook or by crook. But ethical politics is coming to power using the right approach, the right path, etc. For instance, also the politics of gaining independence by Gandhiji was based on a certain path that he followed, and he never wanted to compromise on the ideals of non-violence or peaceful coexistence. So ethical politics is different, and that is something that we will also discuss with each case that we will take up. Now, let's understand the learning. The first part can automatically, let me give you the structure. The first part can just be used for you as an international example, that what was the campaign associated with his election in New York City, and using those ideas, what do we learn for India, and an example associated with the learning as well. This is the structure in which we will be discussing. So the first and foremost lesson is about ushering in integrity and transparency back into politics. What does integrity mean? It means a complete refusal to be compromised at any time. Integrity comes with transparency because transparency is associated with upholding truth at all times and allowing yourself to be in the public and be scrutinized by people because you have nothing to hide. Those are the ideals of integrity and transparency. When we look at Mr. Mamdani's campaign, we see that one of the very prominent nature of his campaigns was complete refusal for any kind of corporate funding. There can be big corporates And this kind of corporate and politician nexus is something that we see world over. So what is the problem with this kind of a funding? He basically said that clean funding drives clean politics. What does this mean? That whenever you have taken some amount of funding from big corporates, industrialists, etc., it can create a certain quid pro quo arrangement. What does that mean? That earlier they have been your fundraisers, or they have given multiple donations, and because your campaign was dependent on their funding, now there is a certain form of obligation that has come on you in order to repay their interests after you come into power. So therefore you are forced to not take up socialistic policies, rather possibly pro-capitalist policies. So that becomes the case as well. But if you're not been funded by any one industrialist, by any one big capitalist, you have no obligation, but the obligation only towards the true welfare of the people. And therefore we say that in order to avoid this conflict of interest, corporate funding or how electoral funding happens is something that should be regulated even in India. Why? Because that creates a quid pro quo arrangement, and that creates what is called as a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest is created because of it. Why? Because once you're voted to power, you're not independent enough to take the decisions. Who has funded your campaign can have an influence on you in the decisions that you're taking. So there is a conflict of what? Of two interests involved. This can also give rise to instances like crony capitalism, where the capitalists are the real individuals running the government or pushing their own agendas in the government machinery because of the weight of funding that they are carrying. So this basically can become a lesson for India, and something that we have discussed a lot. For example, the electoral bonds were also in news, and therefore transparency in electoral politics or funding becomes a lesson that we learn from this rejection as well. So Mamdani had rejected corporate donation, and he had time and again disclosed a lot of his campaign funding. In fact, he utilized very innovative measures such as crowdfunding in order to get the political campaign started. And the moment the crowdfunding had reached the cap, the legal cap that you can spend in an election, then he had also switched it off. He had stopped it also immediately. So these kind of practices relating to transparency in political funding is something that India requires to avoid conflict of interest and the problem of crony capitalism. The example that you can give is the debate in India associated with electoral bonds that created a need for openness so that people can trust and have the right to know whoever they are electing and are coming to power are funded by whom exactly. So this transparency enhances the public trust, and this creates the debate around electoral bonds. The same connect that you will make, and these two are the reasons or the examples that you must remember. Let's come to the other learnings. Empathy and citizen-centric governance. Now he basically prioritized, he took up multiple campaigns associated with pro-tenants, associated with immigrants, associated with individuals, for example the LGBTQIA communities, etc. Basically he understood the experiences that they have lived. Empathy is the way of stepping into someone's shoes and understanding and living their grievances as well. So this empathetic nature and coming into people, not staying away from your constituency. Now what happens in India? There are years, and sometimes it is almost a matter of privilege that a person could meet his representative, his MP, MLA, etc. Should that really be the case in India? If you want citizen-centric governance, you have to engage with the people, know the demand of the people and the grievances at the grassroots level. This is something that was done by Mamdani. He prioritized the life experiences of the marginalized groups. And the ideas like when he campaigned for the free bus rides, of democratizing the transport sector, the free bus rides, etc. These ideas came from the people. It was not a paternalistic system where he said, I know what is best for the city. He roamed around in the city, he met people, he conducted meetings, and that's when he realized what people truly wanted. The lesson for India is that we need to reduce the gap between leaders and people. In fact, we must remember that we or any kind of democracy works on the social contract theory. What is the social contract theory? The social contract theory basically means that individuals and government are in a form of an agreement, an arrangement, where because people themselves can't go and run the country on a day-to-day basis, they choose their representatives. But the real power lies not with the representatives, but because of the trust that people have shown in them to rule. So basically, the realization that you do not hold the true power, you're only holding power on behalf of the public, is the essence of the social contract theory. And therefore, this government then creates laws that people are following. This system works on a trust model. And this trust should not be shaken. This trust is often dented whenever the gap between leaders and people increase. When leaders are unapproachable in a country like India, the gap increases and the trust deficit also increases. So the lesson for India is that leaders should cultivate emotional intelligence, pick up cues, understand what people are going through, have the empathy to relate to people's grievances. So emotional intelligence, the ability to understand what a particular community is facing, that has to be cultivated. The gap between leaders and people has to be closed. And therefore, we need to understand that as leaders or political parties, the manifesto that you are creating, the manifesto of promises, that does not have to be created in certain party boardrooms. That does not have to be created in capital cities. But that has to be created by going into the public and understanding their grievances. So today's young voters have new priorities. They want to vote on different issues, on different agendas. And therefore, Mamdani was credited for understanding the pulse of the people and not assuming what they wanted. That is also a learning that we must know. So address them directly, not through outdated. What we need to do is move beyond identity politics associated with caste identity, economically weaker sections identity, etc. We need to move into other aspects that Indian voters want to vote upon. Example, Delhi's Mohalla clinics that were earlier closer to the people, closest healthcare delivery to the people, was an empathetic response based on citizen-centric inputs of the people of Delhi. So Delhi's Mohalla clinics and Kerala's participatory budgeting shows how empathy can be used in creating citizen-centric policies. And that enhances the social contract, it redefines it, it increases the trust on which it is based. Let's look at the other ones as well. Another certain lesson that Indian politics can learn is that politicians should showcase the courage of conviction, the moral courage, and have the ability to dissent on ethical matters. That means at all times it is not important to follow what is considered as right. What is the popular opinion? What is the majority stand? What is the stand of your coalition party? You can still, as a politician, go against party lines in cases where your moral courage is tested, in cases where ethically something is going wrong and your party is supporting it. How was this showcased? For example, in New York, a city with a significant Jewish population, and a strong pro-Israeli sentiment. Imagine running in this city for a mayor election, yet Mamdani criticized Israel and took a pro-Palestinian stand as well. Imagine the courage to know that there can be a backlash against him, but stand by something that he ethically understands. He did not even have to take this matter. Why? Because this is an international matter. It probably has nothing to do with New York politics. But this is what he redefined, that any human rights issue, any issue of injustice world over is something that he will not shy away from taking a stand on. But this is something that we do not see in Indian politics. In fact, what is considered right for politics is diplomatic answers. Diplomatic answers on news channels, being silent on controversial topics, and therefore trying to keep everyone pleased, including their party, including other vote banks, etc. That is something that people do not want. It is high time that people want affirmative politics. Take a proper stand and therefore look real and not fake by trying to please all interests. So that is the courage of conviction, to stand by something that he thinks is right. Even if it was not required, even if that could have created a disadvantage, standing by it. And dissenting, that means not agreeing with the popular notion, if according to him it is ethically wrong. So the lesson for India is encourage ethical dissent. On matters like this, if people want to dissent, they should go against their party lines. They should probably go against the mere thought associated with losing a vote bank. What we need is principled politics over opportunistic silence. That means you are trying to remain silent because you want to keep every section happy, and probably with the intention of getting an opportunity from the other side as well. That should not be the case. That is why when we are discussing proper reforms, for example, if there is a certain political party that was not favoring the women's reservation bill, and if there is a woman and she truly believes that that reservation bill is going to help in increasing the representation, she should vote according to her belief at least sometimes as compared to what the party line is. So whenever we are debating any reforms relating to climate policy, social justice, etc., we must value some form of moral reasoning as compared to the party lines and the image consciousness that most politicians do have. Let's look at the other lessons as well. Ethics of representation and ending marginalization. Now please understand, there is a lot of tokenism associated with representing certain marginalized sections. Either you go for their meeting, either you stand with them, either on one of their festivals you have posted on your social media channels. This is tokenism. That means you want to be in the good books of people, you want to appear as if you care, but when it truly comes to your policies, your schemes and the work that you do, it is silent for these communities. So he did not just participate in one of the pride parades in New York City, but he definitely also ensured that marginalized sections such as the LGBTQIA community are given better rights, better healthcare packages in the city's administration as well. So his campaign platform includes a detailed plan for the LGBTQIA sections, marginalized sections, example gender affirming care citywide, establishing an office, now this is very important, establishing an office of LGBTQIA affairs and making the city a safe city for LGBTQIA couples and families. What is the lesson for India? If we want to represent certain marginalized sections, it should not just be for tokenism, for namesake. Rather, it should be substantive, not symbolic but substantive, aimed at addressing the structural inequalities and strengthening the institutional mechanisms, schemes, policies, department, bodies, etc., Those are the real work that you do if you truly believe in someone's cause. So these have to be strengthened, and therefore the discrimination can be ended. One of the steps that India has taken is that you'd be surprised to know we are one of the few countries in the world who, under the Ayushman Bharat initiative, give publicly funded health insurance facilities for the transgender individuals or LGBTQI individuals to take up sex reassignment surgeries, publicly funded. So that is something that we can also talk about. Next, the lesson of ethics of solidarity, not charity. Now please understand, there are things that we discuss in GS paper 4 ethics where we say democratic attitude and bureaucratic attitude. A bureaucratic attitude means an officer, while helping a citizen, will almost feel like he or she has done that person a favor. That means if they have sat there in the office for some more time for a person to submit the document, it is a favor that they have done. Even not extended time, the usual time that they have sat in the office and they are doing a job, it is a my baap kind of an attitude. That is something that we write. But a democratic attitude is that you take people together, you say that you are the real stakeholders, not passive beneficiaries. Active stakeholders and not passive beneficiaries. It is you who should decide what you need, and that will be part of my political campaign. And creating a sense of rights-based approach. Rights means what has been delivered to you is not a favor. Rather, it should be claimed as a matter of your right. That is solidarity. Solidarity means standing shoulder to shoulder, understanding the shared problems, the shared responsibility, and bringing and uplifting those people together, not from a top-down approach. Charity means a central authority and hierarchy based on who is the provider and who is the receiver. That should not be the case in Indian politics and even in Indian governance system. Charity probably means the freebies or the revdi culture that we talk about. But solidarity would mean that you inculcate a skill of livelihood to people using skill development initiatives, give them certain credit, and ensure that they are organized in a self-help group to start their own enterprise. That is where you are showing solidarity to their cause, understanding their problems and reacting accordingly. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Mamdani didn't advocate for rent relief. Rather, rent relief would be in the form of a charity that leave their rent for some time. He organized the tenants, he marched alongside them, he took up their campaign and co-founded the Housing Justice for All Coalition, associated with demanding rights for the tenants, moratorium on rents, and cancelling the rents for those who could not afford to pay in the COVID-19 pandemic. This basically shows solidarity, marching with them, taking up their cause, not charity. Charity implies a giver and a receiver based relationship of hierarchy. The powerful help the weak. But the lessons for India is, it is time now for this democracy to be matured enough for politicians to not see people as mere passive beneficiaries. Solidarity implies shared struggles and moral equality. People work together to remove any kind of injustice that they are facing. An example is the self-help group model that I have talked about. It can also be the MG Narega scheme, in which you have made it a legal right for a person to demand work and get that work. So that legal right related or empowering using SHG related initiatives are part of solidarity and not charity. Next, public accountability. Now, please note, one of the most important responsibility for a person in power is that you need to be accountable to the public at large at all times. Why? Because that is the trust that binds this social contract. This involves that you are not misusing the power that has been given into your hands by millions and millions of people. So public accountability is part of ethical governance, and public accountability means that you are not taking these meetings in closed door environments. In fact, you are conducting open and public town halls which are also telecasted live on social media for people to see. How did Mamdani do it? Mr. Mamdani, instead of closed door meetings, he routinely kept public town hall meetings where people could ask him questions, could give him suggestions, could scrutinize him, could question him, etc. And along with this, he also live streamed that on social media to ensure real-time accountability. Please understand, in India, it is often very difficult for even the media to find and get one interview by a significant politicians. That is the kind of gap that Indian media or people in India have with their elected representatives. But look at this conduct here. Open public town hall meetings and live telecasting where he is accessible to each and every person very easily. The lesson for India is that MPs and MLAs should not just address meetings from maybe stages, rather interact as much as possible with people, create or hold Gram Sabhas, Jan Sunwais or online campaigns in order to truly understand and be accessible for people, ensure that they have nothing to fear in front of public scrutiny. So that is also very, very important. John Rawls, a very prominent thinker, had also given the principle of public reason. What does this principle mean? He says that it is very important for public to understand what you are doing, why you are doing, and how will it benefit or impact them in proper convincing as well as rational tones. That means it is important for you to logically make the people understand, communicate to them what you are taking up as a policy action and how will it be impacting them. So the principle of public reason means that political decisions, laws, policy schemes, etc. must be explained and justified to people in proper, rational and logical terms. That is exactly what Mr. Mamdani was also doing in this kind of a public town hall meeting and therefore upholding public accountability. In the end, we can always conclude by saying real power is not in control. The idea is not that you could manipulate, you could control. You have become all powerful to not allow people to do something. Real power lies not in having control, but in being answerable. That is the essence of public accountability. Ethical politics is not about winning power. It is not about how you achieve power only. That is not the concerns associated with ethical politics. That is a concern associated with only politics. But ethical politics is about deserving it. Have you truly worked from the bottom of your heart, truly for the people and not for other interests or self-interest, but for public interest at all times while gaining this power, while holding this power, and maybe also while losing this power? That basically defines ethical politics. So on that note, we have come to an end for today's session. In case you're taking back something informative, please make sure that you like the video, comment down below a lot more other points that we can use and enrich our understanding in the comment section as a peer group as well. On that note, allow me to sign off. In case you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, now's the time to do so. Take care. Bye-bye.